We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Saturday. Now, normally, Ed would be on today, but Ed got busy. Some shit going on. I don't know what it was. I think he had some vaccinations to get for RSV and other stuff that old people like us get. And he couldn't be here on the show, and that's fine. He'll be back next week. He's okay. Don't worry about Ed. That's a weird thing about being old people. When you don't show up someplace where you're expected, people really immediately go to, oh, did he die? No, he didn't die. He's fine. And he will be back. We had kind of a busy week this past week. A lot of shit happened. And actually, yesterday was a little hectic too. Just a couple of stories, but stories that pissed some folks off. I know you're upset, you're worried, you're scared, you're maybe mad. Just take a step back. We'll talk it out. We'll work through it. It'll be fine. And we'll see what happens. Now, we have a bunch of emails. When I do a lot of shows with guests, we often have a lot of emails piling up. And we have a lot of emails piling up. So we may as well just get to the shit and see what's out there. All right. The first one says, "Hi, Boomer. I want to know specifically who pushed the employee at Arlington. I've got a crisp Benjamin. Well, actually, I don't, but I can get one that says it was Corey Lewandowski himself. That's his MO, right? Well, that's true. It is his MO. We saw the videos of him manhandling people during the 2016 campaign. Then he cops a plea for being a sexual assaulting slob in Las Vegas. Nice. And wasn't he allegedly out running around having an affair with a puppy killer? Yeah, you're talking about the South Dakota governor. So we've heard. That's the word on the street. We don't know if that actually happened. He goes on to say, I'm like you, Boomer. I was in a scrap or two in my youth, and I'm sure my young brain overestimates the capabilities of my old body. But I'd be game for that motherfucker pushing me out of the way one on one. I agree with Will 100%. Trump and the documents case. Forget about the grave national security concerns. If you read the indictment, just the obstruction of justice rose to a comical level. Cue up a Benny Hill yakety sack skit. It was that ridiculous. He will absolutely get convicted of that. Sadly, I agree with Arlene that September 18th sentencing will not occur. It will push. And you're right. That's one of the things we're going to talk about today. Arlene was right. Uh, and this emailer was right. We'll talk about it. That's one of the things you're upset about. But he goes on to say, we don't have the backbone to do it. I hope we do. And if it happens, I'm going to have 4 tequila shots to celebrate. And I don't really drink, so that's huge. Will makes a great point. Think of the mentality of a man who can stand in a place like Arlington. And by the way, immediately following a scuffle with an employee, and then stand there grinning, giving a thumbs up. When you commute around DC, you see Arlington from the highway all the time. The gravitas of the place can literally permeate traffic and reach in your car. That pustule couldn't feel it standing there. Good grief, best garage door Jeff. P.S. Boom, this is too long to have a cold. Have you tried Alka-Seltzer Cold Plus or tea, honey, and whiskey like country folks swear by? Yeah, I've had people say that to me. You've had the cold too long. And I agree, it's too long. Excuse me. It's pretty much gone now, but I get my throat scratchy. Some people even think it's allergies. I've never had allergies before, but my doctor suggested that. I went to see the doctor just the other day. And it could be allergies. I know those things pop up at different times of your life. But you also have to understand that I'm 64 and I have type 2 diabetes. And with type 2 diabetes, it takes longer for you to get over shit. I don't like having it this long. I have not tried the Alka-Seltzer Cold Plus this time. I've tried it many times before. I've been trying, what have I been trying? I don't even remember. Uh, and it's worked all right. But I'm getting pretty much over it. And since I brought up the fact that I have type 2 diabetes. I've mentioned it before. The good news is that I had my type 2 diabetes checkup, and my A1C is at 6.6, which is under the 7 threshold, which means I'm doing pretty fucking good. So, anybody worried about my health, I'm fine. I'll be fine. Just relax. I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. Now, for Garage Door Jeff, he wanted to know who the person was that pushed the Arlington Cemetery employee. He said it was Corey Lewandowski. And that's actually a very good guess. Corey's got an MO, as Jeff has said. Turns out it wasn't him, though. NPR reported late Thursday that two officials from Trump's campaign who were allegedly involved in the altercation were Deputy Campaign Manager uh, Justin Corporali and Michelle Picard, a member of Trump's advance team. One of two staffers involved in the altercation at Arlington National Cemetery is a deputy campaign manager for Donald Trump's reelection bid, NPR has learned. The former president insisted this week the incident did not happen, highlighting a growing disconnect between the messaging of the candidate and his campaign, according to the report. NPR is identifying both staffers after the campaign's conflicting responses to the incident last week outside Section 60 of the cemetery, where many casualties of Iraq and Afghanistan are buried. Now, I don't know which one of these it is, but it's also being reported that at least one of them was present on January 6, 2021 at the U.S. Capitol. Big surprise. Fuck. Donald Trump tried everything to spin away from that. And then he just came down and said, fuck it, I'll gaslight these people and say it didn't happen, even though there's video footage. And the Arlington Cemetery employees have stated that it happened. But of course, Donald Trump is right. Everybody else in the world is wrong. Steve comes in and says, it's possible I clicked the wrong button, but I went looking for you on TikTok. I did follow you at one time, but had to follow you again. Just found it odd, Steve. Yeah, I've heard that before. I've never really seen a drop in followers on TikTok. It's a steady climb. It has been for 4 years. But I've heard that before where people say, I knew that I was following you and then I found I wasn't. That's weird. That's some glitch or some intentional thing with TikTok, I'm sure. I also get people who do follow me and says I don't show up on the For You page. That may have something to do with being in the creator fund, because apparently in order to get paid for videos, you have to show up on the For You page. And they don't like paying you if they can get away with it. Anyhow, I'm not sure what was going on there. It's nothing I've done, certainly, but I appreciate you taking the extra time to get into it and get it fixed and get back on track right here with us. All right. The next one says, hi, Mike. I just read another article online about how fucking Trump and his Republican cronies are trying to spin the photo op at Arlington. How in the fuck is this Joe Biden or Kamala Harris's fault? These motherfuckers are fucking unbelievable. My question is, how are these people that go to bat for Trump, the fucktard, have any intelligence at all? Thank you for all you do, Cress. Well, Cress, I don't know about the intelligence of the people around him. But Donald Trump is a dumb motherfucker. There is no question about it. All you have to do is listen to him, and he speaks like a fifth grader. I don't care what anybody says. He's rich. He's a billionaire. Fuck that. He's been handed everything all throughout his life. All the people around him just bow and scrape to him. And while these people are saying the same things he does, I don't know that I would say they're stupid, but they're cowards. They will say and agree with anything that Donald Trump says, and therein lies the problem. They're going to be in for a stark realization, though, when Donald Trump loses the election. He loses his support. He loses his position, and nobody cares anymore. All those people that stuck around too long will realize they made a mistake that they may not be able to rectify. All right, the next one says, "Hey, Mike, Dennis from Iowa. I just hear that our lieutenant governor just resigned to pursue other endeavors. By rule, as I understand it, the next in line to succeed him would be Amy Sinclair. This would mean that our state would be run by an all woman leadership. Just curious if you think that this would be in response to Kamala Harris running for president. Do you think they're trying to relate to the female voting here in Iowa? Just thought is hell of a coincidence at this time. Curious about your thoughts." Dennis from Iowa sent from my iPhone. Dennis, I don't think it was intentional, anything like that. I mean, it could have been. I don't know. Fucking Iowa. Who knows what the hell's going on in Iowa besides, well, maybe Eric or Dennis. Um, I don't think it was intentional. I think maybe the lieutenant governor was getting tired to being tied to a sinking ship, wanted to jump ship before she had to go, or he had to go down with it. That would be my guess, but who knows? I don't think it's going to help any in Iowa. Eric seemed somewhat confident that Iowa could flip blue. I'd be surprised by that, but he would know better than I would, so I'll keep my fingers crossed and hope that's the case. But I tell you this, when you overturn Roe v. Wade and you ban abortions in your state, hiring a woman as a lieutenant governor, that's not going to be enough to make people happy. Trust me on that. It's a typical kind of stupid strategy that Republicans would do, though. So who the fuck knows? All right. The next one says, "Hi, Mike. I have an important message for all Republicans out there. Now that our criminal, bullet, and draft dodging putrid orange wonder has crushed out Joe Biden off the race, what does the Democrats have to offer? Kamala, Tim Walz, it's all fake news, a hoax, and a witch hunt. Look at our side. We got one felon, rapist, traitor, fraudulent, uncivilized liar, mushroom head cult leader, Donald Trump. Number two, Trump's keep your enemies close, woman hater, J.D. Vance. Number three, more than stupid, he is guilty, but I have no evidence, James Comer. Number four, 2 years subpoena avoiding Jim Jordan. Number five, Neanderthal, dumbass, bleach blonde, butch body, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Number six, subpar, less than undereducated queen bitch, white trash, Lauren Blobert. Or as Marjorie Taylor Greene referred to her as a little bitch. Number seven, SCOTUS sellout Justice Clarence Thomas and puppet Aileen Cannon. Eight, dictators Vladimir Putin, Kim Jong Un, and the Chinese guy Xing Ping Wang. I don't know if that's racist or not, but he's a dickhead. Z in China. I want to have an OnlyFan account, Botox lips filled women like Alina Habba, Kimberly Guilfoyle, Laura Trump, and Matt Gaetz. 10, and finally, we have a Hulk. Can Democrats come up with a worse team than this? I don't think so. Go MAGA. That, of course, is Panzer, and it is tongue in cheek, just so you know. All right, the next one says, "Good morning, Boom. It's been a while. Javier from my unfortunate place, South Texas. I've been trying to reach out. I just haven't been able to read you through your great commenting. Your opinion on the dreaded Electoral College of 2024. Do you really think there is a total clear path forward, being you think Kamala will win? That's my most scary thought, being if the walking piece of shit wins Pennsylvania and North Carolina, he wins the electoral vote. That's way too tight, in my opinion. Your great thoughts, Javier." Well, I don't know that there's any thought that he's going to win North Carolina or Pennsylvania. It's very close. There's a lot of things going on with Kamala Harris that would suggest otherwise. At least it's up for grabs. And he could lose North Carolina and maybe even Pennsylvania, but if he flips Florida, it doesn't fucking matter. Or if he flips Florida and Texas, it's fucking over. We're going to see an interesting election. And as I've said before, just for my own security, I won't say that it's going to be a landslide, but I believe it will be a decisive win. There'll be no question in anybody's mind that Kamala Harris kicked the living dog shit, the 7 ways of dog shit out of Donald Trump. I just think that's going to happen. Everything that is going on and everything hanging over Donald Trump's head points to that. Thank you, Javier. All right. I'm listening to your podcast about the woman who stepped out on her man and is now pregnant and wants to help lose the fetus. That's from the Old Soul show we did a while back. I'm angry hearing that you're going to help her to succeed when at the same time she is against women choosing this route. Also, you need to rethink helping her because she needs to realize she can't decide she is for this procedure because she is in trouble. They both had unprotected sex. She was not raped. She had consensual sex, and she should face her husband and the married man's wife to work out a solution. There are real women who need your help. Even the man she had the affair with is willing to pay for the abortion. Grr, I'm so pissed off that you, old soul, are allowing yourself to be used. This is not a good lesson for your child. How did that woman think she could con you into taking her? Denise. I get what you're saying, Denise. I don't necessarily disagree with you. I don't know that I would have helped this woman under the circumstances. But what you have to understand is that Old Soul is a different kind of person. She's better than me. She's better than you. She's better than everybody because she has a compassionate heart and she will help out all kinds of people. Now, Denise, I'm not talking shit about you because I feel the same way, but there has to be people like Old Soul out there to reach out a hand and help whoever needs it as opposed to what their political party is. And that's what she's done. I don't agree with her either, but God bless her for being the person she is. Because without people like this is a horrible place. So I'm not going to yell at Old Soul. I'm just going to do what her TTs do and just say, really? You going to fucking do that? But, what she did do, this woman isn't staying with her in her home. There's another, it's her, as she calls them, her honey's house. She's staying there separate from Old Soul, and her honey and her daughter are staying with her. So there is some separation there. Yeah, I mean, she could only go so far. So I will give her that. But there aren't too many people like Old Soul, and we should do all we can to protect people like that when we get them because they are few and far between, and they are rare. All right, next one comes from Peg HM. 2 thumbs up for the Dan's and Lisa show. Thanks. Well, thank you, and I concur. That was a fun show. Initially, it was just going to be Dan's, which would have been a great show too. And he said, my partner Lisa would like to say hi. She's a fan as well. And I said, sure, let's do that before we started the show. And when I saw she was quite a good talker and had some insights, some things, a very intelligent woman, I said, you can come on sometime too, just you, and you don't have to bring Dan's and vice versa. And he says, you want us to do it together? And I go, yeah, what the hell? I don't care. I'm good with that. I said, let's do it together. And that's how it worked out. It wasn't expected to go that way, but I'm glad it did. It was one of those. Now, you have to forgive me when I say this because I don't mean it the way it sounds. But it was one of those shows that was kind of fun. There was 2 other people talking, and we kidded around a little bit, and we went off on tangents. I'm not saying the other shows aren't fun. A lot of those shows are serious. Some of them are joking around and stuff. But it was an interesting back and forth. It was an interesting rapport. And I had a good time with it. No doubt Dan's and Lisa will be back either together or separately. But I concur with what you're saying, Peg. They did a great job. And let's be honest, everybody that I have on as a guest who's a listener does a fucking great job. And the interesting thing about it, they all come from different perspectives. So each time somebody comes on, it's a different kind of show. And I'm all for that. I personally think having the guest on improves the Rational Boomer podcast. I can do these shows where it's just me, it's not a problem. but I think it adds something to it when we have a guest who can either disagree with me, as Dan's did a number of times. And I don't have a problem with that. I'm willing to hear what somebody else has to say because it's distinctly possible that somebody might have a different or even a better perspective than I did. Now, Dan's didn't, but I was willing to listen. I'm kidding. Dan's a very smart guy and had a great time with him on the show. All right, the next one comes from John. He says, Mike, I heard over 200 lifelong Republicans have endorsed Mrs. Kamala Harris for president. If this is true, they're really tired of Trump, and this is a way to get rid of him from the Republican Party for good. What do you think, John? Yeah, I heard that too. 200 long term Republicans. We heard about Liz Cheney endorsing Kamala Harris. And just yesterday, we heard that through Liz Cheney, that Dick Cheney, Satan his fucking self, is supporting and going to be voting for Kamala Harris. This says a lot. And I'll give it to the Republicans that are making this choice. In 2020, we had what we had. Donald Trump got 74 million votes. Now, did he get 74 million votes because so many people support him? No. It was strictly partisan. People voted for Donald Trump because they would only vote for Republicans and could not bring themselves to vote for Democrats. That's the way it went down. It's a much different situation in 2024. We've got a lot of Republicans just can't stomach it anymore. And it's about goddamn time. I mean, we've got somebody who tried to overthrow the government, that stole classified documents, that was convicted of fraud and trying to cheat in the 2016 election, being found liable for sexual assault. I mean, all those things, any one of them should have been enough to sink him, but it hasn't sunk him as yet. However, there are many people in his party that are tired of the bullshit and they will throw away partisanship over saving the country because that's what they believe. Dick Cheney said this is the greatest danger. He is the greatest danger to the future of this country. So, what these Republicans are deciding, I don't like Democrats, I don't like their policies, but that's better than getting stuck with Donald Trump, who will destroy this country. That does say a lot. I've told you before that in order for a Republican to win, they need a couple of things. They need a completely unified Republican Party, and they need a fair amount of votes from the independents. Well, we know a number of Republicans are departing from the party's ways and not voting for Donald Trump. So he does not have a unified party. And independents, the vast majority, are going to vote Democrat. So he's going to be hard pressed to get enough independent votes to do him any good in this upcoming election. So we'll see what happens. But I just have this feeling, like I said, it's going to be a decisive win. All right, next one says, Hi, Boomer. Get well soon. Remember, lots of vitamin C. I've been taking vitamin C. Just like this past June 6th, which marked the 80th anniversary of D Day. Remember what a great speech and how President Biden looked in that moment. We need to have Congress recognize November 5th as a monumental historical occasion and every other presidential election day henceforth. It really needs to be a federal holiday, in my opinion, like when we came together as a country to destroy Nazism in World War II, where we are going to come together as a country to destroy Trumpism. Obviously, he is a clear and present danger, just as much as any foreign aggression. Thank you for being a foot soldier on the front lines. You are our general in that you help over 300,000 people. Your followers, the Boomer Brigade, is a fitting name to come together and fight for our democracy. And when we fight, we win. Take care, of course, Rhonda. Well, Rhonda, I don't see myself as a leader per se or a general. I'm kind of a shit stir, and I'm just trying to pull people together because, as much as I might want to, there isn't really much I can do. I don't have the kind of power or the clout to do anything on my own. So every time we get new followers, people coming to the podcast or to the TikTok page or YouTube, um, it gives me a warm feeling because the more people we have, the stronger we are. And it's impressive to me that we have as many people on TikTok. I'll be honest with you, when I went on TikTok, I didn't know what to expect. I thought, well, if I can get 10,000 people, That'd be pretty good for an old white guy sitting in his living room. Turns out it went further than that and it continues to grow. So we might as well make hay while the sun shines. We've got a short sprint now to the election, and we want to pull in as many people as we can, inform as many people as we can, inspire as many people as we can. But it's not just me doing it. It's like you folks that send the emails or like you folks that show up on the program. Those are all very valuable in trying to convince people, first of all, to vote and then to vote the right way. So thank you for the kind words, but it's not me, it's all of us. All right. Next one says, "Hey, Mike, Andy from Iowa. Do you think the families of the deceased that asked Trump to visit Arlington were given the rules of the sacred place? Did they, like Trump, just ignore the rules? Was it their prerogative to invite Trump and photographers when that is against their rules?" Well, I think that they had the prerogative to invite Donald Trump. The whole camera thing was pretty well laid out to both the families and to Donald Trump and his team. So it's not like they didn't know. They said, "Fuck it, we're doing it anyway. We'll ask for forgiveness as opposed to permission." You can just see the disgust on that ass clown's face when he reaches out to touch the wreath on the grave, pretending to have empathy. He is blankly staring right through everything, wishing that he was at Mar-a-Lardo or any place else. What a fucking phony. He hasn't attended this site the past 2 years and only went this year for political gain, if he even got any from this asinine shit show. It only proved once more that he thinks the rules don't apply to him. There's no question about that. Does he have provisions in his bail agreement that he is not to break any laws? That's a provision in every bail agreement. This was clearly breaking federal law, and this isn't the only time he broke law while on bail. I remain optimistic that the entire Trump farce fades into darkness on November 5th, 2024, and a new light emerges for America. Wake up, people. Dump Trump. As always, keep up the great work. AO. Andy. Andy, thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I concur with virtually everything you've said here. Um, Donald Trump is only out for himself. We know this. Rules don't mean anything to him all of his life, from the time he was a child to the time he was in college to the time he was in business to the time he dodged the draft. In his mind, rules don't apply to him. And it's a fair enough reason for him to actually believe that, because all of his life, those rules didn't apply to him. He had always had somebody to bail him out, and he didn't have to deal with what the rest of us do. Now he's being blindsided because he's breaking these rules, thinking he'll just get away with it. But then he gets lambasted in the media for it. And he's got to be confused at this point. He really does, because it's absolutely ridiculous from our vantage point. For him, it's confusing. He's never been in a situation like this where people are holding him accountable for anything. He really was upset about this Arlington cemetery thing. He kept bringing it up, kept trying to explain it away. It wasn't me, it was the family members. And then he went to, "It never happened. It's a hoax," even though there's video of it. This is typical Donald Trump. He gets caught and he will say anything to talk his way out of it. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen here. All of these situations are mounting up on Donald Trump. They're becoming overwhelming. And, frankly, he doesn't know what to do at this point. All the old tricks, all the old strategies are no longer working for Donald Trump. And he is very confused. And I would bet when he's at home or with his staff, things get a little ugly. He's got to be frustrated. And that's fine. I hope he continues to get more and more frustrated until it immobilizes him or disables him. I really still believe, to a certain extent, as we get closer to the election, Donald Trump is going to become far less viable, maybe even far less ambulatory. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. In the same vein, Donald Trump is kind of like a cockroach. He can go through pretty much anything and still keep walking. At this point, at this close stage of the election, I think we need Donald Trump to be the candidate because as a country, we need to see him get his ass whipped. That's the kind of closure we need in this country, and I want to see it done. And I feel extremely confident that Kamala Harris will wipe the floor with Donald Trump. I just do. All the facts point to that. All right, we are going to take a quick break and we will be right back. All right, continuing on the Rational Boomer podcast, we've got some more emails. Next one. Hi, Mike. Kamala Harris is in Georgia terrifying Republicans into cheating. Goes on to say, what is your schedule like? Because Ken Paxton just rated homes of Hispanic abuelitas. I'm not a Spanish speaker, so I know what it is. Because they are helping neighbors vote. I am terribly vexed. Anyways, what is a good time to speak on the issues and more later? Will. I spoke to Will, and I think he's going to come on Sunday night, which will run Monday morning. We'll do our best to try to squeeze an opinion out of Will. It's always, I got to drag it out of him. I'm kidding, of course. Always a pleasure to sit down and talk to Will. I think we all get a lot out of it. All right, the next one says, good morning, Mike. I ask everyone to listen and only listen to Trump's recent speech at the NYC Economic Club. I say listen as one needs to hear exactly what the buffoon said. For most of it, he expels a non-coherent verbal stream of his top hits grounded in a fantasy world. He proposes a government efficiency task force headed by Elon Musk. How anyone, after listening to this drivel, can point to Trump and say, yeah, that's my POTUS, needs to be committed to the same facility as Donald Trump. I look forward to two things in life: Trump's defeat, then Trump's departure from this mortal coil, both resulting in never having this clown on my radar again. Thanks, Paul. Well, I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. Next up, hi, Boomer. You really have the cadence going with the great old and new guests. Dan's and Lisa were a ball. Lisa's analogy of Trump being like the blob in that old movie was right on. That's one of the most egregious things about that fuck. He taints every venue, every gathering, every family, every interaction with a new person. So much time spent and things destroyed by and for one dreadfully lacking man. Jace from Texas has become one of my favorite guests. He's sneaky smart with great observations, and he always has some hysterical one-liners. All right, boom, big couple of weeks coming up. This should be fun. Best Garage Door, Jeff. And as always, a PS. P.S. As an aside, the old diner from the actual movie The Blob has been sitting unceremoniously half covered with ratty blue tarp in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. I saw it there about 5 years ago. And a pro tip for eating in those old school diners: the way to go is the hot roast beef sandwich, and with fries, with gravy, and a side of beets for balance. I will tell you this, Jeff. I am a connoisseur of what they call a commercial, which is basically what you're talking about: a hot roast beef sandwich. Now, I don't get it with fries. For my money, if you're going to get a commercial, you got to get the mashed potatoes too. But for me, that is comfort food because that's the kind of thing my mom would make. And I've been to many places where I've had commercials. And I have to say, the best place I've ever had a commercial, the best commercial I ever had was in a town not so far from my home here, and it's the town's called Saint Bonifacius, and there is a little restaurant bar there called Northside Grill. Now, the chances of any of you going by there and actually getting in there are probably limited, but I will tell you, if you go there and order the roast beef commercial, that's what they call them, it's the best shit you're going to get. Honest to God. And I've had many commercials. When I go out to dinner, it's not uncommon for me to have a pizza. I'm a pizza snob. There are so many shitty pizzas out there. I hate the places that use the pre-made crust. That sucks. I hate the places that try to get cute with the shit. There's all kinds of things that people put on pizzas that don't belong on pizzas. And I'll say it here now, and we'll fight about it if you want to. Pineapple isn't one of the things you should put on a fucking pizza or any of these other fancy meats or anything. Sausage, pepperoni, hamburger, cheese, uh, green peppers, onions, all the normal shit. That's what you put on a pizza. And the crust better be thin and crisp, and they better cut it tavern style in little squares. I'm just saying, that's just me. That's just me. And there are very few places that you can find that do it right. When I was like 15, 16 years old, I worked in a pizza shop and I made pizzas. And I loved doing it too. Um, so I always made the pizzas I wanted the way I wanted to make them. And now anytime I get a pizza, most of the time they suck. But there are a few places. There's another place near me too. It's called the Tello's, and it's one of the better pizzas I've had. Red Savoy, uh, good pizzas. There's a few good places here, but there's a lot of places that try so fucking hard, and they are so bad. And I'll give you one tip on pizzas. There's something you would put on it that you would think I wouldn't like putting on it. And I normally don't. But from time to time I do. And I learned this back when I was making pizzas. You make the pizzas, you put all the shit you want on it. And on the top, you sprinkle a little sauerkraut on top of it. I know that sounds fucked up. It's not, though, because you really don't taste the sauerkraut. You taste more of the tang. It gives the pizza more of a tang, and for me, that's good. When I don't put sauerkraut on, I'll put like green olives because it does kind of the same thing. Anyway, I don't know how I got off on a tangent on pizzas because I fucking love pizza. But there's my little lesson for the day in pizza. No doubt many of you disagree with me. That's your prerogative. So if you have some input and how you like the pizza, send it to me. What the fuck? It's my show. We'll talk about whatever the fuck I want to. All right. Next one says, "Hi, Mike. Tons of great guests again." Yes, you're absolutely right. We're getting tons of guests, and I am glad of that. "You were talking with Old Soul about the Republicans trying to go after Kamala Harris for changing how she speaks. Anyone who's ever worked customer service has a customer service voice and the way of speaking in those situations. It's the same in radio. That people have the radio voice. You're tuned to KQ, that kind of thing. I never use that voice because I don't have a good voice that way. I just decided to go with the normal stuff. But I always find it interesting. Inevitably, I'll be someplace and somebody finds out I work or worked in radio at one time. And there's always somebody that had enough sense to get out of radio quickly because there's no money in it, but they did spend a short time in radio. Um, but they'll inevitably walk up to me and say, "Hi, Mike. I hear you worked in radio for a time. I was on the air for a while at such and such, such." They got to throw on the radio voice. And so that kind of annoys me. But there are a lot of people who change their voices or change their dialects. I do it from time to time um, just for changing my pace or if I'm trying to point out something. And I don't do it very well, but I do it. Oprah did it all the fucking time, and she's a goddamn billionaire. Um, anyway, the email goes on. "I can't believe the devil himself, Dick Cheney, endorsed Kamala Harris. Jesus Christ. When you lose the Cheneys, you know you fucked up." Yeah, I'd have to agree. Alan Lichtman's pick is in. His official pick is a Kamala Harris victory based on his big picture criteria. We can't let off the gas with this, but it does at least look good. Yeah. Here's what I'll say about Alan Lichtman. He's probably one of the sharpest guys online. I listen to him. I trust him. But remember, I said this well before Alan Lichtman said it. It was going to be a big win for Kamala, and I stand by that. Lastly, with sentencing being delayed, I think this almost certainly points to Dirty Diaper Donnie becoming inmate 4547 or whatever number they use. If Judge Marchand was going to dismiss the case based on immunity, he wouldn't have kicked it down the road. As for the penalties for his 34 felonies, while any sentence could be seen as political, I think fines or probation wouldn't cause the judge as much concern. The ability to travel on probation could have been granted, and for a supposed billionaire, the fines would probably be pocket change. I think that after the election, the judge is going to throw the book at Dirty Diaper Donnie and give him what would effectively be a life sentence. I also expect Donnie to announce his candidacy for 2028 almost as soon as they announce Kamala Harris as the winner for two reasons. He thinks being a candidate will save him, and to try and reclaim the spotlight from her, the judge did the right thing by delaying this, even though we don't like waiting for the outcome. And we're going to talk more about this in a minute. Thanks, Erica. All right, Eric, thank you very much. And you're absolutely right. There is a lot to be said about what happened. Because there is a lot of people angry. And I typically try to look at the bright side of things, and I'm kind of in the same boat with Eric as to how this will pan out when it comes to the actual sentencing and why he delayed it. We'll talk more about that in a moment. But I think it will be interesting. I think Donald Trump will be in a lot of trouble after the election, and he's going to have no protection. He may say he's going to run for president again, but I will guarantee you this: the Republican Party will not get on board with Donald Trump. And the only way Donald Trump could mount another election campaign as a third party, and he wouldn't have a fucking prayer. All right, this one kind of confused me. Kamala better be prepared for this debate against Trump impart tax plan. Many devout owners of the Ford F-150 pickup truck may not be so sure that the country is worse off for having this tax in effect for decades. Trump may well throw this at her to score surprise points for him and his duties. The duty are sure help at Ford factories. I'm still not sure what he's talking about. As of March 2023, the 1964 tariff of 25% remains levied on imported light trucks. Robert Z. Lawrence, professor for the international trade and investment at Harvard University, contends the tax crippled the U.S. automobile industry by insulating it from real competition in light trucks for 40 years. Chris. Honestly, Chris, I don't know anything about that, but I will have to look into it. That's an interesting point. It seems strange that there would be a 25% tax. Well, I guess it's not when you think of the small trucks coming in from outside the country. You do have Toyota and the like. I have to look into it. I don't even know what I'm talking about, and I appreciate the tip, and I will certainly check into it. Some people will say, "Why didn't you check into it before the show?" Because I don't read the emails before I read them here on the show. And the reason I do that is because I want you to have as much fun and be surprised like I am. We don't know what these motherfuckers are going to say. All right, next one says, "Hey, Mike, we in Georgia are mourning what happened in Winder, Georgia, the site of that mass school shooting. Not going Werner Kemp and the Republican Party, but normal folk are upset. Judge Marchand, being a total wuss, has me rather vexed. Take care, Will." Thank you, Will. So let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about what's going on with this situation with Donald Trump's sentencing being delayed. They already delayed it one time from July to September 18th. Now, Donald Trump was asking that it be delayed once again. And today or yesterday, Judge Marchand said, okay, we are going to delay it. There's one other question that Judge Juan Marchand has to answer. Donald Trump's team asked them to dismiss the case completely for whatever fucked up, stupid reason. And he's going to come down with that decision on September 16th, about 9 days from today. He's not going to shut down the case. He's not going to give Donald Trump the win on that one. I don't know why he's waiting until September 16th. Anyway, after months of delays, a New York judge set a sentencing date Friday for former President Donald Trump, who was convicted in May of 34 felony counts for falsifying business records to conceal a hush money payment to a porn star in the waning days of the 2016 presidential election. New York Supreme Court Justice Juan Marchand set a new sentencing date for November 26th after the 2024 presidential election. Marchand explained his rationale in a letter to the legal counsel, acknowledging that sentencing a former president who's currently seeking office again is fraught with complexities. He decided to postpone the hearing, he said, to avoid any appearance of giving advantage to or to create disadvantage for Donald Trump. Marchand further, hold on a second here. Marchand further emphasized he wanted to avoid any appearance, however unwarranted, that the proceeding has been affected by or seeks to affect the approaching presidential election, which the defendant is a candidate. Marchand has already delayed the sentencing once from July to September. Now, Trump was initially going to be sentenced on July 11th, but Marchand pushed the date back to September 18th after Trump's lawyers urged him to reconsider the verdict in light of the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling that presidents are immune from prosecution of official acts. Now, you remember Alvin Bragg was all in for it to be postponed till September, so there wasn't much fight in that one. Marchand said he would issue a ruling on that argument by September 16th. Trump has repeatedly sought to delay and derail the proceedings, most recently by asking a federal court to seize the case from the state. Had they been successful, Trump's lawyers said they would have attempted to dismiss the case, again citing the Supreme Court's presidential immunity decision. So, what's all this mean? Well, the fact of the matter is I'm not happy about the sentencing being postponed. I don't necessarily blame Judge Marchand. I blame the entire legal system, the Department of Justice. Some clown who's a criminal, who's been convicted, says, I'm going to run for president, and now we all have to run around on tippy toes, on eggshells, just to not look like we're being prejudiced because he's running for president. Even though we know for a fact that he started to run for president for the very reason of trying to protect himself. You would think that would annoy some fucks, and that they would say, okay, we see what you're doing here. We're still going to nail you to the wall. But I think Eric made some good points. We're not talking about a huge delay here. It's not like November 5th is the election and we'll wait till next July. It's coming shortly after that. It's 3 weeks after the election, November 26th. And as Eric pointed out, this may allow Judge Juan Marchand a lot more leeway to sentence a president who's running for presidential election. Might cause him to have to ease up a little bit, might have to cause him to think twice about jail time or some of the other things. By delaying it a couple of months, which is what's happening here, he may be free and clear to do what he needs to do. Needless to say, Juan Marchand is probably very annoyed by Donald Trump. All the attacks on his court, the attacks on his daughter, the violations of the gag order, getting punished, and then violating the gag order again. He's in a position to offer a serious sentence to Donald Trump. And it would be harder for him to do that prior to the election than it would be just 3 weeks after the election. I know it's frustrating. I know you're mad. I'm pissed off about how weak our legal system is. That's something we have to look at. But as I've said many times before, we have one goal right now. The most important goal right now is we win in November. Once we win in November, we can start working on all the problems, and they are many, and it's going to take a while. We've got our own Supreme Court. We've got Donald Trump's legal problems. We've got all these things ahead of us. but we've got to win the election in order to be powerful enough to deal with those situations and hold people accountable. After what we got the convictions on Donald Trump, 34 of them, and that's all we needed at this point, that presence of those convictions. Um, I think this puts Donald Trump in a very bad position. As we can see, he has a certain amount of protection because he's running for president. After the election, that won't be the case. Even if he says, I'm running in 2028. Yeah, I doubt it, Donnie, because I don't think the Republicans going to be playing with you for another 4 years. Once you lose this one big, you're pretty much done. And then you're an island unto yourself. You're unprotected. You have no money. You're a convicted felon. You're going to get sentenced. You've got 3 more trials where you're likely going to be convicted. The rest of your life is going to be a living hell. And you know what? I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it now. I'll truly enjoy it when it all starts on November 6th. We'll be watching and we'll be giggling and laughing at how your life has turned to shit. All right. Moving on. Vice President Kamala Harris just nabbed a major Republican endorsement in her mad dash for the White House. We mentioned it earlier. This is a big one. Dick Cheney, Satan his motherfucking self. Liz Cheney's dad, Dick Cheney, who is ultra right, ultra conservative, ultra Republican, has decided that it's better to vote for a Democrat than it is Donald Trump. And that says a lot. Former vice president released a statement Friday, a couple of hours after his daughter, former Wyoming Rep. Liz Cheney, disclosed her father's plans. He said, in our nation's 248-year history, there's never been an individual who is a greater threat to our republic than Donald Trump. He tried to steal the last election using lies and violence to keep himself in power after the voters had rejected him. He can never be trusted with power again. As citizens, we each have a duty to put our country above partisanship to defend our Constitution. That is why I will be casting my vote for Vice President Kamala Harris. Trump responded to Cheney's endorsement Friday evening. Dick Cheney is an irrelevant rhino, along with his daughter, who lost by the largest margin in the history of the congressional races. Not true. He is the king. Hold on. He is the king of endless, nonsensical wars, wasting lives and trillions of dollars, just like Comrade Kamala Harris. I'm at peace. I am the peace president, and only I will stop World War III. Only I can do it. Harris campaigner Jen O'Malley Dillon applauded Cheney for his announcement. The vice president's proud to have the support of Vice President Cheney and deeply respects his courage to put country over party, she said. For every voter who cares about America and understands the fundamental threat Donald Trump poses to our democracy and our Constitution, this campaign has a home for you. Everybody's welcome. Earlier Friday, Liz Cheney broke the news of her arch-conservative father's support for the Democratic nominee while speaking at the Texas Tribune Festival in Austin on Friday. Dick Cheney will be voting for Kamala Harris, she said. The former Congresswoman, who lost her bid for re-election in 2022 after emerging as a major Trump critic, supporting his second impeachment and sitting on the House committee investigating the January 6th attack, revealed her father's decision a day after she, too, endorsed Kamala Harris. It's crucially important for people to recognize not only is what I said about the danger that Trump poses something that should prevent people from voting for him, but I don't believe that we have the luxury of writing in candidates' names, particularly in swing states, Liz Cheney said at an event at Duke University. In an ad for his daughter's 2022 reelection bid, the elder Cheney slammed Trump as a coward. Former President George W. Bush, whom Cheney served with in the White House from 2000 to 2008, has occasionally spoken critically of Trump since his political ascent, but he has yet to ever endorse any of Trump's Democratic opponents. His father, the late former President George H.W. Bush, endorsed former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton over Trump in 2016. Numerous Republicans also spoke in support of Harris at the Democratic National Convention last month, including some former members of Trump's administration. Can you believe that? Can you honestly fucking believe that? Republicans, not just Republicans, hardcore ass Republicans are supporting Kamala Harris over supporting Republican candidate Donald Trump. That says a lot. It's what I said before. You have to have a unified party in order for the Republicans to win. And at the very least, they don't have a unified party. Now, Donald Trump had some things to say about Dick Cheney. He said Dick Cheney is an irrelevant rhino, Republican in name only, along with his daughter. Trump said they couldn't get Scooter Libby, who did so much for them, but was so unfairly treated. Pardoned. I did it. He's the king of endless nonsensical wars, wasting lives and trillions of dollars, just like Comrade Kamala Harris. He goes on to say what Liz Cheney did with the Unselect Committee of the Political Losers is unthinkable. She and her unselects, he's so clever. He's so funny. Deleted and destroyed all evidence and information. It's gone. No, they didn't. They released all the information. Donnie just needs some bullshit to say. Much of it proved that Nancy Pelosi was responsible for January 6th, didn't provide security. See, that's the interesting thing. He keeps trying to blame Nancy Pelosi. Who's in charge of the National Guard in Washington, D.C.? That is the Pentagon, who was under Donald Trump. Donald Trump, all he had to do was say, send out the National Guard, and they would have done it. In fact, he did do it way too late, but they went out. Had nothing to do with Nancy Pelosi. It's absolute bullshit, and I would be glad to argue with anybody about that. It's Donald Trump who had control of the National Guard. Nancy Pelosi was begging for the National Guard, and Donald Trump did nothing. Even people on his own staff have said that he ignored the pleas for the National Guard. Now, he went on and he said Cheney and others should be prosecuted for what they did, but Comrade Kamala Harris is even worse. What the hell did she do? The idea that former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi was responsible for the lack of security on January 6th has been repeatedly debunked. It was, in fact, Trump who refused to deploy the National Guard to protect the Capitol, and former Vice President Mike Pence, and to circumvent the chain of command. Now, Dick Cheney is a deeply conservative and controversial figure in the George W. Bush administration. He's gradually turned against the Republican Party he once helped lead, partly because of Trump's rejection of the American-led foreign policy, but also out of horror at Trump trying to overturn the 2020 election. His daughter Liz Cheney, who previously headed the House Republican Conference but was stripped of power and later denied renomination to her seat after she joined with Democrats to investigate January 6th, has similarly backed Harris for president and is even endorsing Democrats down the ballot, including Colin Allred in the Texas Senate race. This is all big news. This is all proof that Donald Trump is a clear and present danger to this country. He is now, he always will be. He should not have any power going into the future at all. It just should not fucking happen. And it will not happen. Donald Trump cannot win in November. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care about the media. I don't care about polls. I was saying to somebody that I can't wait till November 6th when Kamala wins by a decisive amount, maybe even a landslide. I just want to go and laugh at the Republicans. And I want to say to the media, how is it that an old white guy and his peers knew what was going to happen, and you fuckers kept saying it's going to be a tight race, it's going to be a toss-up? You're either lying or you're complicit, and that's the left side media and the right side media. Can't wait to call them out. We won't hear nothing. We won't hear anything in return, but it will be nice to get it off of my chest. All right, we are going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen. I hope you have a great day. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.